I never thought I'd be writing this. Even now, months later, with the ache in my ankle, a dull, persistent memory, my hands shake when I think about what happened to me in those woods. This isn't some campfire tale or a story I'm telling for attention. This is what really happened when I got lost in the mountains and met something that shouldn't exist, a Bigfoot. An actual Bigfoot saved my life. I'd been planning this solo camping trip for months, obsessively. It was more than a vacation. It was a crusade against my own perceived inadequacy. I devoured blogs written by grizzled outdoorsmen, watched countless YouTube videos of people building shelters with nothing but a knife and a positive attitude, and hemorrhaged money on all the latest and greatest gear. I wanted to prove to myself, and maybe to everyone else, that I could do it. That I, the guy who usually called for help to change a light bulb, could go out into the raw wilderness alone, survive on my own terms, and come back with stories that weren't about misadventures in the city. My friends, bless their sensible hearts, kept telling me to start small. Maybe do a state park first. You know, one with a ranger station and cell service, they'd suggest gently. But I didn't listen. Pride is a stubborn and foolish beast. I picked a remote, barely on the map area in the mountains, a solid 3-hour drive from the nearest town, a place where the trails were suggestions more than rules. Looking back now, that was my first mistake, the first in a long, cascading series of them. The drive up was beautiful, deceptively so. It was the kind of beauty that lulls you into a false sense of security. Endless forests of pine and fir trees blanketed everything, their scent thick and clean in the air. Jagged, granite-faced mountains clawed at the sky in the distance, promising adventure and solitude. I didn't see another car on the winding dirt road for the last hour. I felt like an explorer, a modern-day pioneer, really doing something bold. I parked my car at the trailhead around noon, a small, unassuming patch of gravel that marked the end of civilization. I shouldered my backpack, grunting under the weight, and headed into the vast, silent forest. The pack was heavy, too heavy. I knew it even then. In my anxiety to be prepared for everything, I'd prepared for nothing. I'd brought way more food than I could possibly eat in a week, let alone a weekend. Extra clothes for every conceivable weather event. I'd even packed 2 sleeping bags because I couldn't decide which one had the better temperature rating. Every step was a workout, a strenuous reminder of my inexperience. The first couple of hours were fine though. The trail was well marked enough, a thin ribbon of packed earth winding through the towering pines and over little babbling streams. The sounds of the forest were a symphony of peace, birds singing complex melodies, squirrels chattering indignantly from the branches, the gentle rustle of leaves in the breeze. I stopped frequently to take pictures with my phone, drank from my water bottle, and felt a swelling sense of pride. This wasn't so hard. All those people who said I wasn't ready were wrong. I was crushing it. By late afternoon, I'd made it about 5 miles in. My shoulders were screaming, and my legs felt like jelly, but I'd found a decent spot near a creek and decided to set up camp. The idyllic feeling quickly evaporated. It took me forever to get the tent up. The instructions, with their minimalist diagrams, might as well have been written in an alien language. The poles, spring-loaded and seemingly sentient, kept popping out of their grommets and smacking me in the face. By the time I finally had the lopsided structure standing, I was exhausted, drenched in sweat and simmering with frustration. But I did it. My tent. My campsite. I gathered some firewood, filtered some water from the creek with my brand new filter, and ate a dry, joyless granola bar as I watched the sun begin its slow, majestic descent behind the mountains. This was what I came for. The solitude, the self-reliance, the stunning view. I fell asleep feeling sore but victorious. The next morning I woke up feeling confident. Too confident. That was my second and most critical mistake. I decided to do some exploring before packing up and heading back, just a little off-trail hike to see what was over the next Ridge. I left all my gear at the tent, the heavy pack, the food, the water filter, the sleeping bags, the first aid kit. I just took my water bottle, which was only half full, and my phone for pictures. I figured I'd be back in an hour, tops. There wasn't a real trail where I went, just faint animal paths and open forest. I kept telling myself I'd recognize the way back. That big mossy rock, that distinctively fallen tree, that cluster of oddly shaped bushes. But the deeper I went, the more everything started to look the same. Every tree was just another tree, every rock a twin of the last. The subtle landmarks I'd mentally catalogued blended into an indistinguishable sea of green and brown. I pulled out my phone to check the GPS, a knot of unease tightening in my stomach. No signal, not even one flickering, hopeful bar. I told myself not to panic. Panic was the enemy. I'd read that. The sun was still in the east. I could navigate by that. I'd just head west, back the way I came. Except I couldn't remember with any certainty which way that was. Had I come from the north or the west? Was my tent uphill or downhill from here? I tried retracing my steps, but every direction looked alien and unfamiliar. I walked for what felt like hours, my initial confidence crumbling into dust. My water bottle was almost empty. The sun climbed higher, beating down through the canopy, turning the forest into a humid oven. I was sweating through my shirt. My legs were aching with a deep, burning fatigue. And then I realized something that made my stomach drop into my boots. I had no idea where I was. Not even close. I tried to stay calm, tried to remember all those survival tips I'd so casually absorbed. Stay in one place if you're lost. Conserve energy, don't panic, but I couldn't just sit there. My tent had all my food, my water filter, my shelter, everything. I had to find it. So I kept walking, a desperate stumbling march, hoping I'd stumble across something familiar, the creek, the trail, anything. That's when the terrain got nasty. I'd wandered into a section of the forest where the ground was all loose scree and steep, unforgiving slopes. Cliffs dropped off into nothingness. Narrow ledges, barely wide enough for my boots, clung to the rock faces. I should have turned back, found a safer route, but I was fixated on the idea that if I could just get to higher ground, I could see where I was, get my bearings. So I started climbing, using exposed tree roots and outcrops of rock as handholds, pulling myself up the steep slope. I was about halfway up when my foot slipped, just a loose rock shifting under my weight, nothing dramatic, but it was enough. I fell hard, tumbling down maybe 10 or 15 feet before my body slammed into a large boulder. The pain in my leg was instant and overwhelming, a white-hot, blinding agony that shot up from my ankle all the way to my hip. I tried to push myself up, to stand, and immediately collapsed back to the ground with a cry. My ankle wouldn't hold any weight at all. When I looked down, I could see it was already swelling to the size of a grapefruit, the skin turning a sickening shade of purple and blue. That's when the real panic set in, cold and absolute. I was lost, severely injured and completely alone. It was already mid-afternoon. The sun would be going down in a few hours. I had no tent, no sleeping bag, no food, just the clothes on my back and an empty water bottle. I tried yelling for help, screaming until my throat was raw, but my voice just disappeared into the immense, indifferent forest. Nobody was coming. Nobody even knew exactly where I was. I managed to drag myself under the overhang of a large pine tree, my legs screaming in protest with every agonizing movement. I sat there, propped against the trunk, trying to figure out what to do, trying not to think about how cold it would get at night, or what animals might be out here. Wolves, bears, mountain lions. I was completely exposed, completely helpless. My phone was useless, still no signal. The battery was dying anyway. I turned it off to save what little power was left. The pain in my leg was a constant, vicious throbbing. I tried to take my boot off, but my ankle was too swollen to get it past the opening. I needed ice, elevation, a doctor. Instead, I had dirt and rocks and nothing. I sat there for maybe an hour, maybe two. as the shadows grew longer and the temperature began to drop. I was shivering already. By nightfall, I'd be freezing. I thought about my family, my friends, everyone who told me this was a bad idea. They were right. I was a fool. I wasn't ready for this. I never should have come out here. That's when I heard it. A sound in the forest maybe 50 yards away. Heavy footsteps crunching through the underbrush. Not the light-footed scamper of a deer, but something heavy, substantial. My heart started pounding against my ribs like a trapped bird. A bear. It had to be a bear. I froze, trying to make myself as small and insignificant as possible, holding my breath. The footsteps got closer, steady and deliberate, like whatever it was wasn't in any hurry. I could hear large branches snapping, leaves rustling, getting closer and closer, and then I saw it, a dark shape moving through the trees. At first, I thought my eyes were playing tricks on me, that the pain and fear were making me hallucinate. It was tall, too tall, and it was walking on two legs. My brain couldn't process what I was seeing. It had to be a person, another hiker. But as the Bigfoot got closer, stepping into a patch of dappled sunlight, I realized with a surge of primal terror that it wasn't human at all. The Bigfoot was massive, easily 7 or 8 feet tall, covered from head to toe in thick, dark, reddish-brown hair. The Bigfoot's shoulders were impossibly broad, wider than any human I'd ever seen. The Bigfoot's arms were long, hanging down almost to the Bigfoot's knees, ending in huge, powerful-looking hands, and the Bigfoot was walking straight toward me. Every muscle in my body screamed at me to run, but I couldn't. My leg was useless. All I could do was try to crawl backward, dragging my injured limb through the dirt, away from this impossible thing. The pain didn't matter anymore. Pure, unadulterated terror had taken over completely. The Bigfoot stopped about 20 feet away, just standing there watching me. The Bigfoot's face was like nothing I'd ever seen or imagined, not quite human, not quite ape, but something ancient and in between. Dark, intelligent eyes were set deep under a heavy brow ridge. The Bigfoot had a flat nose and a wide, lipless mouth. The Bigfoot tilted the Bigfoot's head, studying me with an unnerving intensity, the way you might study an injured bird you'd found on the ground. I opened my mouth to scream, but nothing came out. My throat was too tight, my chest too constricted with fear. The Bigfoot took another deliberate step closer. I tried to crawl backward again, but there was nowhere to go. My back was pressed against the unyielding surface of a boulder. I was trapped, completely at this thing's mercy. The Bigfoot crouched down, getting closer to my level, and I could smell the Bigfoot now. A musty, earthy smell, like wet dog mixed with damp soil and the scent of the forest floor. It wasn't unpleasant, just wild, the smell of an animal. The Bigfoot reached out one massive hand, the fingers long and thick, toward my injured leg. I flinched away, certain the Bigfoot was going to crush my already broken ankle, but the Bigfoot moved slowly, carefully. When the Bigfoot's fingers gently touched my swollen ankle, I couldn't help it. I screamed, a raw, piercing shriek of pain and terror. The pain was like an electric shock, a white-hot flash that shot up my entire leg. The Bigfoot jerked back, startled by my reaction. The Bigfoot made a sound, something between a low grunt and a deep rumble that vibrated in the Bigfoot's chest. The Bigfoot looked almost concerned, if that's even possible. Like the Bigfoot hadn't meant to cause me pain. What happened next is hard to describe, even harder to believe. The Bigfoot stood up, looked around the small clearing as if thinking, then bent down and, with shocking ease, scooped me up into the Bigfoot's arms like I weighed nothing. I was too stunned to resist, too terrified to do anything but hang limp. The Bigfoot's arms were like steel bands, holding me securely against the Bigfoot's chest. Through the thick, coarse hair, I could feel the immense warmth of the Bigfoot's body. The Bigfoot started walking, moving through the dense, uneven forest with an agility that seemed impossible for something so large. The Bigfoot's feet, huge and flat, barely made a sound on the leaf-strewn ground. The Bigfoot stepped over fallen logs and navigated around rocks as if they weren't there. I didn't know where the Bigfoot was taking me. A part of my terrified mind wondered if I was about to become dinner for a family of these things. But the Bigfoot's grip was surprisingly gentle, careful not to jostle my injured leg. The Bigfoot was being deliberate about it, trying not to hurt me. That realization was almost more unsettling than the fear. This creature was thinking, planning, taking care of me. We walked for maybe 15 minutes before the Bigfoot stopped in front of a sheer rock face. At first, I didn't see anything but stone and moss. But then the Bigfoot ducked down and I realized there was an opening, a cave cleverly hidden behind some fallen boulders and a curtain of overhanging roots. The Bigfoot had to turn sideways to fit through the narrow entrance, being careful not to bump my head or my leg. Inside, the space opened up into a chamber about the size of a one-car garage. Dim light filtered in from the entrance and from a small, natural crack in the ceiling far above. The floor was covered in a thick, soft carpet of dried leaves and pine needles, dry and surprisingly clean. This was the Bigfoot's home. The Bigfoot set me down gently on the softest part of the floor, arranging me so my back was against the cool stone wall. My leg was throbbing, but I barely noticed. I was too busy trying to comprehend what was happening. A Bigfoot had just carried me to its cave. This wasn't possible. Bigfoot wasn't real. But the Bigfoot was right there, crouching a few feet away, watching me with those dark, intelligent eyes. The Bigfoot made a low, rumbling sound, then moved to the back of the cave. The Bigfoot returned a moment later with something in the Bigfoot's hands, a thick piece of bark, hollowed out like a bowl and filled with water. The Bigfoot held it out to me. I hesitated for a second, my fear warring with my desperate thirst. Then I took it. The water was cold and clear, probably from a mountain spring. I drank it all greedily. I hadn't realized how thirsty I was. The Bigfoot made that rumbling sound again, almost like the Bigfoot was pleased. That's when the Bigfoot began to communicate. Not in words I understood, of course, but in a series of grunts, gestures, and sounds that had clear meaning behind them. The Bigfoot pointed at my injured leg, then at me, then made a gesture with 2 fingers, like a person walking. Then the Bigfoot shook the Bigfoot's head emphatically. It was so simple, but so clear. You can't walk, you're hurt. The Bigfoot understood what had happened to me. I nodded, touching my swollen ankle and wincing to show the Bigfoot was right. The Bigfoot grunted again, then did something that made my breath catch. The Bigfoot pointed at me, then pointed forcefully outside the cave. The Bigfoot made walking motions with the Bigfoot's fingers again. Then the Bigfoot shook the Bigfoot's head hard, making an angry, guttural sound. The message was unmistakable. You shouldn't have been out there. You don't know how to survive here. I felt my face flush with shame. This creature was right. I'd been stupid and reckless. I'd come out here puffed up with arrogance, thinking I was prepared, when I had no idea what I was doing. And now I was completely dependent on this Bigfoot for my very survival. The Bigfoot seemed to sense my understanding and my shame. The Bigfoot reached out and patted my shoulder, a heavy but surprisingly gentle touch, the way you might comfort a lost child. Over the next hour or so, as dusk settled outside, we developed a strange kind of communication. The Bigfoot would make sounds and gestures, and I'd try to understand. Sometimes the Bigfoot would pick up objects to help explain. The Bigfoot showed me a pile of berries and roots in a corner of the cave. Food. The Bigfoot pointed at the crack in the ceiling. Smoke goes out. The Bigfoot had clearly lived here a long time, knew every detail of this cave. This wasn't just a shelter. This was the Bigfoot's carefully constructed home. The Bigfoot brought me some of the berries. They were tart, but not bad. I ate them gratefully. The Bigfoot watched me eat, then pointed at me and held up one finger. Then the Bigfoot gestured around the cave, a wide sweep of one powerful arm. One person. Stay here. The Bigfoot was telling me to remain in the cave while the Bigfoot went out. I must have looked scared, because the Bigfoot made a soothing, deep and calm sound. I will come back. True to the Bigfoot's word, the Bigfoot returned maybe an hour later, carrying an armful of straight branches and what looked like thick, soft moss. The Bigfoot set them down carefully, then started working on something. I watched, mesmerized, as the Bigfoot arranged the branches into a kind of splint, padding the inside with the soft moss. The Bigfoot brought it over to me and pointed at my leg. The Bigfoot wanted to stabilize my ankle. I tried to help, but the Bigfoot gently pushed my hands away. The Bigfoot worked with surprising dexterity for such large fingers, carefully removing my boot and sock and positioning the splint around my swollen, discolored ankle. Every touch was deliberate. Whenever I flinched in pain, the Bigfoot would pause, making that low, rumbling sound, waiting for me to be ready. When the Bigfoot was done, my ankle felt supported, secure. The pain was still there, a deep, throbbing ache, but it was manageable now. The Bigfoot had made a better splint than I ever could have. I tried to say thank you, but the words felt hollow and inadequate. Instead, I reached out and touched the Bigfoot's arm, trying to convey my gratitude through the simple act. The Bigfoot looked down at my hand for a moment, then made that rumbling sound again, a sound of acknowledgement. The Bigfoot stood up and moved to the entrance of the cave, looking out at the darkening forest. The sun was gone, night was coming. The Bigfoot turned back to me and made a gesture. "Come!" I shook my head and pointed at my leg. I couldn't walk. But the Bigfoot just moved over and scooped me up again, as easily as before. The Bigfoot carried me to the cave entrance so I could see outside. The forest was beautiful in the fading light, all deep purple shadows and the last golden rays filtering through the trees. The Bigfoot made a sound and pointed, teaching me, showing me. The Bigfoot kept me in the Bigfoot's arms as the Bigfoot walked out into the forest. I tensed up, nervous about leaving the safety of the cave, but the Bigfoot made that soothing sound again. "Trust me." The Bigfoot moved silently through the trees, avoiding branches and obstacles with an ease that seemed impossible in the growing darkness. The Bigfoot's eyesight must have been incredible. The Bigfoot could see things I couldn't even make out. We came to a small clearing, and the Bigfoot stopped. The Bigfoot pointed up at the sky. Stars were starting to appear, more brilliant and numerous than I'd ever seen in my life, a glittering diamond dust scattered across a velvet black canvas. The Bigfoot made a sound, something almost like awe, and I realized the Bigfoot was sharing this with me, showing me the beauty of the Bigfoot's world. The forest at night wasn't something to fear, it was something to appreciate. The Bigfoot carried me along what seemed like a game trail, stopping occasionally to point things out. An owl perched silently in a tree, watching us with huge luminous eyes. A family of deer grazing in a moonlit meadow, their heads lifting as we approached before they bounded away into the darkness. The Bigfoot was teaching me, showing me how to move through the forest, how to read the signs, which plants were safe, which areas to avoid. All of it communicated through gestures and sounds and an incredible, unwavering patience. Then, the Bigfoot suddenly stopped. The Bigfoot's entire body went tense. I felt the Bigfoot's arms tighten around me protectively. The Bigfoot was listening to something I couldn't hear. Then I caught it. A low sound, somewhere between a cough and a growl. The Bigfoot shifted me in the Bigfoot's arms and turned slowly. That's when I saw it. Two yellow eyes gleaming in the darkness about 30 feet away. A mountain lion, big and lean, watching us from the shadows. My heart stopped. A mountain lion, one of the most dangerous predators in North America, and I was injured, helpless, completely at its mercy. But the Bigfoot didn't run. The Bigfoot stood perfectly still, a silent, immovable giant, watching the mountain lion. The cat circled around us, its long tail twitching, those yellow eyes never leaving me. It was stalking us, sizing us up, deciding if we were worth the risk. The Bigfoot made a sound, not loud, but deep and resonant, a warning that vibrated through the Bigfoot's chest and into my own. The mountain lion stopped circling and crouched low, to the ground. It was going to attack, every muscle in my body locked up with terror. but the Bigfoot just shifted me to one arm, freeing the other hand. The Bigfoot reached down and picked up a rock, a big one, maybe 15 pounds. The Bigfoot held it up, displaying it to the mountain lion. "This is what you're facing." The mountain lion hesitated. It took a step forward, then stopped. The Bigfoot made that warning sound again, louder this time, and raised the rock higher. The mountain lion's ears flattened against its head. It was calculating, weighing the risk. An injured human would have been easy prey, but an 8-foot Bigfoot holding a boulder was a different story entirely. The mountain lion took a step back, then another. It growled once, a low sound of frustration, then turned and vanished into the darkness as silently as it had appeared. I realized I'd been holding my breath. I let it out in a shaky gasp. The Bigfoot dropped the rock and adjusted me back into the Bigfoot's chest, patting my shoulder gently. "Safe. You're safe." I wanted to cry from sheer relief. The Bigfoot had just saved my life, again. If I'd been out here alone with my injured leg, that mountain lion would have killed me, no question about it. The Bigfoot started walking back toward the cave, moving faster now. The Bigfoot had made the point the Bigfoot wanted to make. The forest at night was beautiful, but it was also dangerous. You needed to know what you were doing. You needed to be strong, alert, prepared. I wasn't any of those things. Without the Bigfoot, I would have died out here. Back at the cave, the Bigfoot set me down in my spot against the wall. The temperature had dropped significantly. I was shivering despite my jacket. The Bigfoot noticed and disappeared outside again. The Bigfoot returned with armfuls of dry leaves and soft pine needles, piling them around me like a warm, insulating nest. Then the Bigfoot brought larger branches and arranged them near the cave entrance. The Bigfoot was building a fire. I watched as the Bigfoot worked. The Bigfoot had a piece of flint and a harder rock, striking them together with practiced skill until sparks fell onto a small pile of dry grass and bark shavings. The Bigfoot bent down and blew gently, expertly coaxing the ember into a tiny flame. The Bigfoot fed it carefully, adding larger and larger pieces of wood until a proper crackling fire was going. The warmth was immediate and wonderful. The Bigfoot had positioned it perfectly, close enough to warm the cave, but angled so the smoke was drawn out through the crack in the ceiling. The Bigfoot sat down across from me, the fire dancing between us, and I got my first really good look at the Bigfoot. The firelight played across the Bigfoot's features, making the Bigfoot's face seem almost human in some moments, completely alien in others. The Bigfoot had scars, I noticed, old ones faded into the Bigfoot's hairy hide. The Bigfoot had lived a hard life out here, survived things I couldn't even begin to imagine. And yet, the Bigfoot had stopped to help me, a stranger, an intruder who didn't belong here. The Bigfoot made a sound and held out the Bigfoot's hand. In the Bigfoot's palm were more berries, along with what looked like some kind of root vegetable roasted in the fire's embers. Food. I took it gratefully and ate. It wasn't much, but it was better than anything I'd ever tasted. The Bigfoot ate too, chewing slowly, watching the fire. We sat there in a comfortable, companionable silence, the crackling of the flames the only sound. It was completely surreal. I was having dinner with a Bigfoot, and it felt almost normal. After we ate, the Bigfoot started communicating again, teaching again. The Bigfoot pointed at me, then made the gesture for walking with 2 fingers. Then the Bigfoot shook the Bigfoot's head and pointed at the forest outside. "You came out here to walk, to explore, but you're not ready." The Bigfoot tapped the Bigfoot's own chest, then pointed outside again. "I belong here. You don't. Not yet, anyway." I nodded, feeling that familiar flush of embarrassment. The Bigfoot seemed to sense this. The Bigfoot reached across the fire and touched my hand, holding it gently in the Bigfoot's massive palm. The Bigfoot looked at me for a long moment, then made a sound, soft and almost kind. It wasn't anger in the Bigfoot's eyes. It was something else. Concern, maybe. Or pity. The Bigfoot understood that I'd made mistakes, that I'd been foolish. But the Bigfoot wasn't judging me. The Bigfoot was teaching me. As the night wore on, the Bigfoot kept the fire going, a silent, diligent guardian. The Bigfoot would get up periodically and add wood, always careful to maintain just the right size flame. Every action was practiced, efficient, born from years of living this way. I must have dozed off at some point because I woke up disoriented, the pain in my leg a dull throb. Then I saw the Bigfoot sitting across from me, silhouetted against the firelight, and it all came rushing back. The Bigfoot noticed I was awake and made a soft sound, holding out a piece of bark with water. When I woke up again, grey dawn light was filtering into the cave. The fire had burned down to embers. The Bigfoot was already awake, sitting at the cave entrance, looking out at the waking forest. The Bigfoot stood and stretched, the Bigfoot's massive frame nearly touching the cave ceiling, then gestured for me to come. The Bigfoot carried me out of the cave and down to a small stream nearby. The Bigfoot set me down gently on a flat rock and pointed at the water. Clean, fresh. The Bigfoot cupped the Bigfoot's hands and drank, then gestured for me to do the same. The water was ice cold and crystal clear. The Bigfoot pointed upstream and made a gesture like walking. Follow the water, it will lead you out. The Bigfoot was teaching me again, showing me how to find my way if I ever got lost again. The Bigfoot spent the next hour teaching me things I never would have learned from any book or video. The Bigfoot showed me how to read the moss on trees to find north. The Bigfoot pointed out animal tracks in the mud, explaining through gestures which were dangerous and which were harmless. The Bigfoot showed me which plants were safe to eat and which were poison, making exaggerated sick faces for the bad ones. The Bigfoot was giving me the tools to survive out here. Then the Bigfoot did something that surprised me. The Bigfoot reached into the Bigfoot's own thick fur and pulled out my phone. I'd completely forgotten about it. The battery had to be dead by now, but the Bigfoot held it out to me and pointed, then made a gesture like holding it up high, looking for something. Signal. The Bigfoot understood what the phone was for. The Bigfoot had watched me check it yesterday, had seen my frustration when it didn't work. The Bigfoot was telling me to try again. I turned it on, expecting nothing. But to my shock, a single bar of signal appeared, flickering in and out, but it was there. And the battery still had 3%. I looked at the Bigfoot, who nodded. The Bigfoot had brought me here for a reason. This specific spot by this stream had reception. The Bigfoot knew. The Bigfoot had been planning this since picking me up yesterday. Get me to safety, keep me alive, and bring me to a place where I could call for help. With shaking hands, I called emergency services. The call cut in and out, but I managed to give them my location, my injury, that I needed rescue. The dispatcher said they'd send a helicopter. It might be a couple of hours, but they were coming. When I hung up, I looked at the Bigfoot. The Bigfoot had heard the whole thing, understood what was about to happen. Help was coming. I was leaving. The Bigfoot made a sound, something that might have been satisfaction, or maybe sadness. The Bigfoot picked me up one last time and carried me back to the cave. The Bigfoot set me down and added fresh wood to the fire, keeping me warm while I waited. Then the Bigfoot sat down across from me, the way the Bigfoot had last night, and we just looked at each other. I tried to find words, but nothing seemed adequate. Thank you didn't cover it. You saved my life was true, but insufficient. This creature had shown me more compassion than many people ever had. The Bigfoot had been patient with my ignorance, gentle with my fear, and generous with the Bigfoot's knowledge. The Bigfoot had asked for nothing in return. I reached out, and the Bigfoot took my hand. The Bigfoot's palm was rough and calloused, but warm. We sat there like that for a long time, not moving, just being present with each other. Two completely different creatures sharing a moment of connection. The Bigfoot squeezed my hand gently, then let go. The Bigfoot pointed at me, then pointed at the Bigfoot's own chest, then pointed outside. You go. I stay. This is my home. You have your own." I nodded, feeling tears well up in my eyes. The Bigfoot reached out and gently wiped them away with one massive thumb. The Bigfoot made that soothing rumble again. "It's okay." Then the Bigfoot stood up and walked to the cave entrance. The Bigfoot looked back at me one last time, and I swear the Bigfoot smiled. Just a slight upturn at the corners of the Bigfoot's mouth, but it was there. Then the Bigfoot turned and walked into the forest, disappearing into the trees as if the Bigfoot had never existed at all. About an hour later, I heard the helicopter. I crawled out of the cave, waving my arms. They saw me and landed. 2 paramedics came running over, asking questions, checking my vitals, examining my leg. They were amazed I'd survived the night out here. They asked how I'd managed to splint my ankle so well, how I'd stayed warm, where I'd gotten water. I didn't tell them about the Bigfoot. I couldn't. I said I'd found a cave and made do with what I could find. They seemed to buy it. As the helicopter lifted off, I looked down at the forest. Somewhere down there, a Bigfoot was watching. Somewhere in those trees, a creature that shouldn't exist was going about its day, living a life that humans would never fully understand. And that Bigfoot had saved my life. It's been months now. My ankle healed, though it still aches when the weather changes. I think of it as a reminder. I've gone back to my normal life, but something fundamental changed in me. I have a new respect for the wilderness, a deep and abiding humility. I've read everything I can find about Bigfoot sightings. Most describe the Bigfoot as aggressive or dangerous, but that wasn't my experience at all. The Bigfoot I met was gentle, patient, protective, a thinking, feeling being with compassion and intelligence. Sometimes I wonder if I dreamed it all, but then I remember details too real to be imagined. The texture of the Bigfoot's fur, the earthy smell, the exact sound of that rumbling call, the weight of the Bigfoot's hand on my shoulder, the intelligence in those dark eyes. No dream could be that vivid. I think about going back sometimes, finding that cave, leaving a gift, but I know I never will. That would be selfish. The Bigfoot helped me and then let me go. The Bigfoot just wanted to be left alone. The least I can do is respect that. I carry that experience with me every day. The lessons the Bigfoot taught me about humility, about respect, about the fact that there are still mysteries in the world that don't need to be solved or documented. Some things can just exist, quiet and unknown. I know what people would say if I told them. I don't have any proof, but I know what I experienced. I know the Bigfoot was real. I know the Bigfoot saved my life. I know the Bigfoot was more human in the Bigfoot's compassion than many actual humans I've met. And I know the Bigfoot is still out there, living the life the Bigfoot has always lived. That's my story. A Bigfoot saved my life and changed how I see the world. You can believe it or not. I'm not trying to convince anyone. I'm just sharing what I experienced, because it feels wrong to keep it completely to myself. To the Bigfoot, wherever you are, thank you. Thank you for seeing me at my most vulnerable and helping anyway. Thank you for existing. And to anyone reading this who plans to go into the wilderness, please be careful. Please be prepared. Please be humble. You might not be as lucky as I was. You might not meet a Bigfoot who decides to save you.